All right, I'm here talking to Sam Plecker today. I'm super excited to talk to Sam because I really enjoy his music and can hear like a really unique fingerprint with his production style and just a true sense of craft as a songwriter. I came across Sam actually through this uh, this album, which is like basically a live album he uploaded to YouTube. And the reason I found it is because our mutual friend Chris Schlarb um, got involved in recording it. I believe we can talk about this gig and stuff, but this is with two musicians I've recorded with myself, Ben Lumsdaine and Erica Schaefer. Am I right about that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And the like sheer clarity and simplicity of this as also just an experiment to record an album live to 4 track in front of an audience, I thought was a really bold and successful experiment. And then since then, I've checked out Sam's other music he's got available here, and also some production work he did on that Spencer Hoffman record.
Mhm.
And then he's also been kind enough to pass along his record that's basically brand new, on the way, or already out, depending on when this airs,
Mhm.
called Plucker, I think.
Mhm.
And that's just been a pleasure to listen to. Just last night, we were doing some Legos uh, in my son's room and playing that record on repeat.
I love
And
that.
when a kid is humming along to music they've never heard, that that almost strikes me as maybe one of the ultimate compliments a song could get. Um, so Sam, thanks for hanging out with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Again, I guess I'll just start with that 4 track record of you playing in Oceanside. Am I right on the details? Like, did you have Chris record that direct to 4 track? Can you tell me like the setup for that?
Yeah, yeah, that was it was just kind of funny because Chris had a concert at Zebulon with a quartet that he put together, an instrumental quartet. Um I wish that I can remember everybody that was playing in the band, but anyway, he kind of asked me because Chris and I's Chris Schlarb and I's relationship really is on the foundation of that Tascam 4 track, the 246. I see that you've got one over there
It is
too in
over
the corner.
there. Yeah.
But yeah, I like, my my relationship with Chris started from that machine because I had fallen in love with the machine and I started researching online like who else is using this machine? They like somebody else has to love this thing as much as me.
Mm.
And I found Chris's YouTube channel and I was like, wow, like this guy's so cool. And, I dove into his world and then I had him help me record that record, So True,
Mm.
which was to a 4 track that had Ben playing drums on it as well.
Mm.
But then it kind of turned into this thing where Chris was like, hey, can you come to Zebulon down in Southern California, in Los Angeles? And can you record my quartet's show live on the 4 track on the Tascam? I
Mhm.
said, yeah, sure. And he goes, okay, well, how much can I pay you for your time? And I said, oh, well, why don't you just come out and record my show next?
There you go.
Like an IOU.
The
So
barter. Yeah.
yeah, but the thing was I didn't have a show booked. So I actually kind of made that show based around the idea of doing it. And it was I actually have a lot of friends down in Oceanside. I went to college with a lot of kids down in San Diego. And so it just sounded like a cool, fun thing to do. And um, God, I love playing music with Ben and Erica too. She's amazing.
Oh
So
yeah.
it was just like a great little kind of power trio, no direction, just kind of like handed them a playlist of all the songs and said, basically learn them learn them Bob Dylan style,
Yeah.
learn when it goes to the next phrase, but the key and the tempo and the feel can vary.
Yeah, man, it's so refreshing. I guess a question, I mean the beauty of the 4 track, the 246 in particular, like I'm a big believer in like the power of gear design as as a form of inspiration, right? It just looks cool
Oh
and
yeah.
you can't deny it, and it probably has an impact on the experience of recording to it. But do you feel different when you record to a 4 track than a computer? Like imagine Chris would have been there with his laptop and his interface recording that show. Do you feel like maybe your performance would have been different? It's hard to know, but
I don't know, it's hard to know, but I think the way we interface with I kind of like what you had to say about how the machine's like form factor itself is cool and that inspires you. I'm a big believer in that. And I think that through conversations I've had about recording in digital audio workstations, like Pro Tools, Logic, Ableton, um, I think that there's a lot of micro psychology going on that we don't put into account. Like the waveforms make shapes and the clips and regions in Pro Tools at least like auto color. So like when you record one, it's purple and the next one's blue and the next one's green. And there's all these things like where like you could just not be liking purple that day, or you could just not be liking the shape of the waveform that it's making. And so I think that there's all these like kind of like there's all this information that's like going to impact the way you interpret and make decisions. Whereas, yeah, I feel like the Tascam has this really, or any 4 track for that matter, has this real kind of like down rootsy, like almost like home gardening feel, like where you're like, yeah, I grew that. It may not be the best or the biggest potato or whatever, but I got out there every day and I watered that song and I grew it and I went and I harvested it from this machine.
mm,
I think that that's like how it feels. Like there's just like so much more pride wrapped around it. And I think
mm.
it doesn't hurt that it looks cool too. So it feels
Yeah,
inspiring to interface with and like whatever it's giving back to you, you're like, yeah, I think it's magnificent.
I think you're totally onto something. I think about this a lot with like also just the stakes. Like I've been thinking as I've talked to people through this medium in the last few weeks, I've been thinking a lot about like pressure and stakes as inherent in the recording process. But then what's beautiful about the 4 track is it's like homely and warm and inviting, but it's
Hmm.
also way higher, you could argue way higher pressure than recording to a computer that is cold and detached aesthetically. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you can just keep doing takes on your computer and whatever, it doesn't care, but you're not looking at your MacBook going like, man, what a like
Yeah.
at least in
But
this,
Marvel.
yeah, in the same way you might with a 4 track, but the 4 track, at least when I record to it, I feel more a sense of permanence. Like, oh, we're going to press record and we're going to try to make a thing, and I want to keep that thing, and I want to do. I don't know. I don't like that. I would maybe want to do a better job in certain recording situations, but it does seem to feel like the stakes are higher. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, I mean, and that psychology, I always use this when I'm producing for bands and artists that want to be on tape. And I say the best part about being on tape, like the tone and the sonic quality, to me is like a secondary. I think
Yeah.
that the form factor is the ultimate thing because it only takes you one time missing the count off, and then for everybody to have to reset, the engineer to have to rewind the tape, find the spot to start again. It only takes you one time of goofing that up to be like, well, I'm not going to be that guy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be the one that's going to hold up this session. So it kind of turns into, like you said, in performance terms, it turns into that audience, that sort of that service. Like, what are we serving?
Mm,
What are we putting our energy and attention to? We're serving this art, you know,
mm,
and I feel like we all perform and bands perform differently with that pressure.
mm.
Whereas like the computer, even though yes, it's making it's capturing a physical medium on hard disk space or solid state drive space, it still feels like this empty kind of bottomless pit void.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're on a machine, It feels like you become a craftsman and you're cutting board for your home and you go, okay, well, it's time to, you know,
Measure twice, cut once.
yeah, exactly, and mean it, and
Yeah.
be like, okay, we're gonna do this, and if we mess up, we're gonna pivot instead of, we can't just stop. Like
Mm.
we got
Hmm.
to keep this thing going. So I think it really is helpful. And I'm 32 years old, born in 1993, and I come from a small town, not so small anymore, but outside of Sacramento. And I don't have anybody in my family that's musical. And I didn't have any like cool older brother, cousin,
Mm.
sister figure that like hipped me up to like cassette 4 track. Like by the time I was coming of age and like in bands and stuff like that, digital was the way. And I
Yeah.
think like any sort of jaded sound man or person at Guitar Center would look at a 4 track and be like, why would you want that?
Yeah, it's just a pain. Yeah.
So I got into all this later, through just, becoming, through recording on digital and being like, man, I want to do what my heroes did. I want to, record on tape. I want to do all this stuff. And I figured all that out later. But I have to say that like falling in love with like the 4 track way of life, it's just changed. It's changed how I've lived my life, I'd say.
Mm.
It changes how I approach things and how I listen to things. And it's finally like what I would say like healed me in the digital realm, like where I have a lot more discipline and restraint in like using digital recorders responsibly, like Pro Tools. Like I don't over edit anymore. I
So,
don't
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. So you mean restraint, like almost maybe treating the computer like a tape machine in a way, like it's there as a capturing device. It's not there to continually do surgery with and blah, blah, blah.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Because yeah, I mean, around the time that I met Chris, it was because, I spent my entire 20s touring and making records in a rock band. And, all those records were on Pro Tools. Um, and then around 2020, I got out of that band and then I shifted all my focus onto recording studios. And I worked at various recording studios down in Southern California.
Were you
Uh,
assistant like engineering in a variety of sessions and
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I started from a runner assistant position at United Recording, which used to be Ocean Way.
Hmm.
And then I did some work at this producer's Gus Seifert's home studio.
Oh, I remember him. He was my buddy's neighbor. He had that band Willoughby.
Willoughby. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's some cool and talk about I think he did that on a 388. Um
that's some tapey music for sure. That's cool.
creepy music. And yeah, and that was like the best of it for me of like interfacing with analog and getting these high quality recordings. But working for Gus is like working at a candy store. That guy's got the best of the best stuff. He's got an incredible studio and an incredible ear. And he's definitely a guy. He's maybe the first guy that I worked with that had like a um unquestionable vibe to like anything he touched, like anything he recorded kind of sounded like him and not in this bad way. Like he just had this really it has this really cool world.
Man, he was, just as a side note, it's funny you bring him up. I mean, we're talking for me 20 years ago. I had a friend who lived right there in Elysian Park or wherever those guys all lived, and there
Mhm.
were there were other musicians in the mix, including this great keyboard player named John Wood, who now lives up in Humboldt.
Mhm.
I think he was maybe in that group, but anyway, when it clicked to me that that guy Gus was like like I think he was a Cal Arts jazz. I think he was originally like a stand up. I
Yeah.
think he's like a trained sort of jazz bass player. He was the very first person who ever um, came on my radar as like a trained sort of musician who like basically was like, oh, like have good taste and I want to be a producer and like make music that people want to listen to versus
Yeah,
being like some virtuoso trained person who is kind of just playing for other music students, you know? Like
right.
I'd only known that, if that makes sense, like trained muso who plays with musos for musos or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
he's a good example of like deep high taste and sound, but
yeah.
still weirdly informed by like music education or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah, he's incredible. I have to say, I was fortunate enough to cut the basic tracks for and the vocal tracks for that Roger Waters record that he recently
Oh
did,
wow.
the
Oh
new
wow.
Dark Side of the Moon.
Hmm.
And the basic tracking sessions was him on bass, Joey Warnaker on drums, and Jonathan Wilson on guitar.
Yeah.
And I was listening to them cut the basics to, Dark Side of the Moon, the whole record, like that as a trio. And I that was, that was some of the best musicianship that I've maybe witnessed in like in person. Even just like to the point of like, like Joey Warnaker, like we had a click track going, and I remember somebody saying like, "Hey Joey, can you just like lay back a little bit?" And then I was like looking at the grid line to the click, and he was then not on the beat, but like moved it perfectly behind, like a machine.
Oh.
And there was nothing, no quantizing, no crazy button pressing. And Gus's bass playing, yeah, he just has like the touch
Hmm.
and the tone, like he just has it all, and it was.
Hmm.
It was amazing. But my journey kept going from there, and I started working at this other studio in the valley of Southern California called Valentine. And that was a studio that closed down in the 70s and then reopened back up in 2015,
Hmm.
completely restored. So it's like a time capsule.
Hmm.
Very cool studio, but a lot of high-end, like, big label artists come there because it's a very aesthetically pleasing place to be. And, you know,
Speaking of form
yeah,
factor and stuff, yeah.
yeah. But, but that's kind of then when I feel like my journey as a professional, I really, to secure a job as an engineer, especially in one of the most competitive music cities in the world, Los Angeles, you gotta have your chops on Pro Tools. You gotta know,
Hmm.
you gotta know how to use that scalpel
Hmm.
and fast.
Hmm.
So I did that, and I'm fortunate for I will pat myself on the back and say I have very proficient Pro Tools skills. I can move quick and make really big edits with ease. But then it turns into one of those things where, a head full of knowledge is a dangerous thing
Hmm.
when you're the artist and when you're trying to perform surgery on yourself and you're performing all your own songs. So I learned all this trade for so long, and I tried to make my own music with all these, behind the curtain skills I had put together over the years. And I couldn't make anything that I liked.
Whoa. Yeah.
So after trying to record, a collection of songs that I had been writing for a long time and, shit canning, you know, a song for the second or third time, I kind of just threw in the towel and I said, you know, the analogy I kind of used was I need to go find the doctor's doctor, or I need to go find the barber's barber.
Hmm.
And that was Chris Schlarb.
Oh,
And
cool.
so I
Hmm.
finally kind of like reached out to him and said, "Hey man, I've admired you from afar for a long time. Uh, I noticed that you're a fellow Tascam 246 lover. I'd love to discuss with you about doing a record. I love everything that you do. It has this real great like world. I think that Chris is another guy that everything that he does kind of has a world. I feel like
Hmm.
his approach is very distinct. And so I went over to Big Ego, rest in peace. And I talked to him, and we were just pretty much, he was just like, all right, well, we'll cut your record to the 246. Uh, and I kind of put him to the classic task of like a classic producer and putting a band together. I said, just put a band together. Here's the budget. I just don't want to know anybody in the band. I kind of wanted this
That's smart.
really green sort of like,
What led you? Because I resonate with that impulse in a way. I mean, it's fun to play music with people you know, obviously too. But what made you want to not know the people? Like what basically made you want to let go of the reins completely? Because that's what you're really saying.
yeah, I mean, I think it was because, like I told you, I was struggling with the music so much because because I knew I was trying to control it.
Got it.
And, maybe I don't know why I felt the need to control it. Maybe I felt like only I could do it.
Mm,
But I just think that that was some dumb ego stuff because I clearly wasn't happy with it. And so I think just in a final ditch effort of kind of getting these songs off my chest and really reigniting my career as an artist, to be honest.
mm,
Like I told you, like I started as like an artist, a singer-songwriter, touring guy, and then I went to the studio side and I struggled to get back into the artist thing. So that's what I was trying to do. And
mm.
um, I just think that I needed to make some music with some really good people that had good instincts. And I needed to get out of the way. And preferably, I wanted them to not know me and not know my baggage and not know my history.
Yeah.
I didn't want them to be like, oh, I know that Sam would want this, or, I know that this
Yeah.
is what he's going for.
Yeah.
I kind of just wanted these fresh pools. So then, I could just kind of sit there and it was just super Motown style, like where I'd be like, okay, here's the next song. I'd kind of start strumming it and be like, I had like maybe a piece of paper for all of them where it's like this one goes intro,
Yeah.
verse, pre-chorus, chorus, and it does that again, and then it does an outro, or this one does a bridge, or this one is just like four verses with instrumental breaks or something. And it would give them like kind of a chance, and we'd kind of like fumble through one and record it, and then we'd press record on number two, and that was 80% of the time the take.
Yeah.
And then we did, take three, which sometimes got the take, or other times it just told us that take two is the take.
Was the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can really hear it. Like, I don't even know, I haven't known your history that well. I mean, I kind of put some pieces together when I checked out your old band and then have listened, but the sound of the live show you put up at Oceanside and then So True, those records, you really like, and honestly, like the cover of like that sun going up or coming down, I can't tell, but the sun
Yeah.
sort of behind that ridge there, you can hear the sound of somebody kind of like breaking through into something, and it's a really beautiful thing to witness because I that energy is there, and there it feels like a deeply from the outside, right, not knowing you, like it feels like a breakthrough, like in the therapeutic sense.
Hmm.
That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like somebody like shedding skin or something.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I'm really glad that that's what you pick up on that, because for me, that's what that whole album is about, is kind of getting back to that truth of music and the truth of performance. And I don't know, just I think, yeah, being okay and bold enough to be yourself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I can tell I play that record for some people, and I think for some people that's some stinky cheese. I think they're kind of like, oh yeah, like I don't know. Like, yeah, I think that maybe you're a little bit sour on that vocal part here or there, or you hit that weird note on the guitar or something like that. But then, I don't know. I That's my favorite stuff. And that's where Chris is super good at just being kind of like, well, if Bob Dylan or Neil Young can do that and people are okay with that, then why not for you? And it's like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
true. Just
that
getting
seems to be yeah
thrown at you.
that seems to be the like the constant battle as a creative person. Even it's like sort of the classic problem is when an artist, like a writer or a musician, is like, oh man, I'm a huge fan of X, right? Like I'm a
Mhm.
huge fan of of those Blue Note records from the 50s and 60s. I just love that. They recorded it in 3 hours, blah, blah, blah. And then that person goes to make their record, and it's kind of a 3 month process of like, right? And it's the same thing for a writer, like of fiction or a movie maker or anyone, where it's kind of like, if those really are your heroes, if that really is what you care about, then like jump off the cliff and try the process that you're holding up high and see what
Yeah.
happens, because maybe you'll find out it's not what you really can do, want to do, or maybe you will find out, yes, that is what I believe in. But it's almost like you do have to jump off a cliff. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you have to like act like you have to act out your values. Otherwise, it's just like bullshit, basically.
Yeah, certainly. And I think like and also it's like it's way lower turn like lower risk. Like I've spent, months on a recording just to get to the end of it and go, this sucks. And then, like can it. But I set up a tape machine and invited some people over and got a shitty session and been like, okay, well, I burned a day. It's
Yeah,
we
yeah,
didn't get it that day. We didn't make magic happen that day.
yeah.
Whatever. Better than 2 months.
Mm,
And I think that that's I'm more about that. And I think that art and music in the world all have this sort of there's these funny axioms of like I think that the best way to get precious art is to be less precious about your art. You know,
that's a great way to put it.
it's like the more that you can let it flow and happen. It's like everybody's favorite photo of themselves wasn't a photo where they said, okay, right here. All right. And now.
Hmm.
It's always like you were just doing something and then somebody had a camera and went,
Mm.
and then you see that photo, you go, oh my God, that's my favorite photo of myself.
Yeah, it captures like who I actually am
Yeah,
versus this big construction and fantasy that misses the mark or whatever.
right. And
Hmm.
so I don't know, that's how I feel about recording and creation and authenticity. And, I think that I appreciate to touch back on what you said about breaking through and healing as a creator and stuff because it makes me feel happy to have done that and do my record that way because other people have then gotten contact with me that want to make records that similar way. And I
Hmm.
think it's like, it's become like how Chris's music was to me.
Hmm.
Now my music can provide as that sort of like, hey, you can do it this way.
Hmm.
Like it can kind of create that poster.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, proof of concept, right, is kind of the idea, right? It's almost like, look, this can happen, and I can work in this ecosystem, and it's possible. And it's also just like rarefied, like it's gutsy. I'm looking for other words besides these things, but like it does feel brave, gutsy, and like courageous in a weird way to make music that can't really be surgically done, right? Like you're committing so much, whether it's bleed of other instruments or keeping a take where the vocals were so not always perfect. Like it's a proof of concept and a philosophy that um I don't know. It's a beautiful thing. So for your new record, you tell us about how you kind of put that together, because that also involved Chris, but
yeah.
were the basics for that also sort of done in a similar fashion of kind of quick in your own space and everything?
Yeah, we cut that one in a similar spirit. I moved out of California and I moved up to the Pacific Northwest with my wife. We are now living down in Portland, but at the time that I recorded it, we were living with her family, her parents, and they have some property up in Vancouver, Washington, in a smaller town called Battleground. And they have this in-law suite studio that we were living in. and I literally turned it into a studio. So they're kind enough to um, go get lost and take a little vacation in January earlier this year, 2026. And I kind of did the same thing. I just said, "Hey, Chris, I'd love to fly up and put together a band of people to play these new songs." And I had like demoed them out for the months kind of leading up to it. So he had an idea, and he had this friend that used to live in Long Beach, drummer Sheridan Riley, who plays with that band always with the two V's instead
Oh,
of the
yeah.
W. And they've got some serious hands on the drums. Very, very cool player. And then another Los Angeles uh, lever, Max Naus on the guitar.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, he's living up here in like Salem area, I believe, just south of Portland. And so they both came up. We couldn't get a bass player, so we just didn't have a bass player for the sessions. And we recorded my new record, which I'm calling Plucker, kind of like a Nilsson Schmilsson.
Hmm.
Just trying to give it to the people a little bit. A lot of people botch my last name because I get it. It's not a very like common last name, but it's not like hard either. It's phonetically spelled exactly how it sounds, but people always say Plucker or Fletcher or something. So I thought it'd be kind of funny to kind of give it back to him and maybe increase the Google search success on trying to find my name or something.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, they came up and we recorded it, and then while we did some, I think we did 3 days, 2 days of tracking the songs, and then on day three, I just set up a bass amp um, while Sheridan was doing some percussion and quickly ran those down. And then everybody left, and I told myself I was gonna restrain myself and put some time in between listening back to the takes because like Chris did some notes and said, this one's take two, this one's take one, this one's take three.
Yeah.
And then, I only lasted maybe about 2 days. I opened up everything and listened to it all and went with pretty much every take he said, and um yeah, did some overdubs, like harmonies and whatnot. And then I flew down to Los Angeles and had my other friend Chris Rolance play some upright bass on a few tunes.
Okay. Yeah, I
I
was
don't,
wondering about that.
I don't have that skill. And then I roped back in Philip Glenn. He was on my first record, and he's another.
Fiddle or
Yeah,
something? Yeah.
Phil. He's the bomb. He's his name's Phil, and I'm convinced it's Phil because he fills up the track.
Hmm.
When he comes to a session, he brings like a banjo, a violin, a mandolin, an accordion.
Got
He'll
it.
jump on the piano, an organ, and like he's like one of those rare breeds where like he can play on an organ and then play organ stuff, and then go on a piano and play piano stuff. So he's just very, very valuable in that sense. So I got those guys for a day, and then Phil kind of filled in those blanks of, mandolin, banjo, fiddle, and then it was done. And I took it home, and I mixed it down on this new console that I got from it's from England, but I got it from Scotland. Um, it's called a Chilton.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like a British, kind of like a British API, but it sounds really good, really punchy. Um,
And are you doing it in Pro Tools and sending it out through that,
yeah,
basically? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And this was like, yeah, this is what I'm meaning of being able to use Pro Tools more maturely,
Hmm.
still capture what I want to capture, and not over editing. Um,
Is mixing your own stuff a unique challenge versus mixing other people's, or like has all your time just engineering in the city and whatever else puts you in a place where you can be relatively objective with your own material as good as possible?
Yeah, I think that I've become a lot easier at mixing my own stuff. I think mostly even too because when I'm the artist who, if I'm engineering or helping engineer, or Chris is engineering my stuff, I'm not as picky and I'm more trusting of you know, like the drum kit will have two mics, and I'm like, that's fine, that's enough.
Yeah,
And when I'm mixing other people's stuff or engineering, I tend to do a little bit more of a job because they're paying me their hard-earned cash, and I just like to be covered
yeah.
in most cases because, you know, I think that a lot of people still suffer in this insecurity while making art thing, where, we can put up two mics on the drums, but then they're like, oh man, I want it to sound bigger. I want it to sound boomier. I want it to sound all these more
So
stuff.
you want to give yourself like the option down the road with a client, right? So that you can make it more high def if you need to, basically, in a way.
Yeah. And, that's not always the case. Like
Sure,
sometimes I meet people that are like, I want to go bare bones. I want to do
sure.
something super real and have a lot of bleed and make this really like live recording.
Hmm.
Yeah. But I can't tell you how many times people have come to me and been like, I want to go for the basement tapes Bob Dylan vibe. And I'm like, okay. And then they like want to recut their vocal.
That's what we were talking about. Yeah, totally.
But I can hear the my other vocal in the take. I'm like, guess we got to do another take. They're like, but I like that take. I'm like, okay, let's use it. But I don't want to use my vocal. I'm
Yeah,
like, well, maybe our approach is wrong, you know?
yeah.
So, and I think that that's where like being bold comes in
Mhm.
and being able to put your foot down or just know that like, I don't know. I think that in this digital realm, people have become conditioned to know like, oh, I can just go redo something else later. But
Yeah.
it's smart just to say like, why? I got everything up right now. I'm just gonna go for it.
Hmm.
And I can tell you, like listening to my new record, from my So True one, I'm like, I've become a better singer. I've
Hmm.
become a better musician in that time, just from like doing it more and
Hmm.
playing more shows. Like from the release of that record, or the creation rather, the tracking of So True to now, I've played several shows. I've had several more sessions, with bands, solo. I've become a more comfortable artist.
Hmm.
Well, there's something to reps too, of just getting out and doing it.
Yeah. Are you inclined these days to, I mean, you're already kind of doing this, but like, are you sort of inclined to be both artist and producer these days as far as how you would ideally spend your time? Like, are your interests in both places, your music and others, or like, do you feel the pull to want to like, I don't know, mostly be doing your own music or mostly work with other people? Where are you at on that spectrum?
Um, you know, the freelancer world as a studio guy, like a producer and engineer, it ebbs and flows so hard. And I feel like that's even a lot of the subject matter of a lot of the new songs on my new
I
record.
noticed, yeah, that's a lot of like, I mean, real quick, I want to hear what you have to say, but I was going to bring that up that like a lot of the subject matter is like economic subject matter and
Yeah.
like, sort of like in the best way, but like kind of almost cost of doing business subject matter
Yeah.
and movement, like down, sort of like looking at following dreams and like the boss and like these different things. So go on.
Yeah. It's difficult because, the freelancer music market, it relies so much on the health of the economy because most of my clients, my personal clients, are hobbyist musicians, people that want something done for their art's sake. Like they're not receiving a return on it,
Right. Right.
maybe half of them are breaking even on some sort of a record sale or a tour, or merchandise, whatever. But most of the label stuff that I do, I'm getting hired in as like, an assistant engineer. I'm not getting those giant contracts. So yeah, I'm mostly making music for hobbyists. So when the economy is pretty good, like when we were kind of experienced a post-COVID money inflated environment where people were wanting to, get into their passions and their hobbies and spend their time and money and efforts on doing stuff that make them happy, it was
Mhm.
pretty good. I was making some pretty good money coming out of COVID, and that was great. But then, Live Nation bought all the venues, all the touring bus and van companies became so expensive, hotels became expensive, gas became expensive. Bands stop touring, bands stop making money, bands break up, labels stop signing people, and there just becomes this choke on money.
Mhm.
And I experienced that choke too. So yeah, I had to do, working. I went from, like in 2019, my band opened up for the Rolling Stones.
Mhm.
COVID happened. Then I went to like work at some of the biggest studios in Hollywood, like United, uh, and worked on the Roger Waters record and did all these great things. And then like I had to go get a day job at UPS,
Mhm.
like to go deliver packages during the Christmas season because I needed money. I had to,
All within like a 3 year time period
yeah.
ish. Yeah.
And there's a lot to be like, and it's easy to feel sorry for yourself in
Mhm.
those manners, or in those, not in those manners, in those times. Um, but looking back now, that's kind of what I'm all about. That's the grit of I'm willing to do what I got to do to live this life that I live because it's all I know and it's what I'm good at and it's what I've put uh, my brain power to.
Mhm.
Um, and my making my own music in those times of not having a lot of freelancer recording work was great because I got to focus on myself and work, a job that didn't really matter to me, but it let my brain wander. And I wrote a lot of those songs while I was at work delivering packages.
Oh yeah.
And you know, I think it all turned out for the best. And then you like then have all this music and release all this music and then that kind of gets you work. Or at least in my case it does. So
Yeah. Well, because it is like what's beautiful about your records, but this new one especially is like it is amongst other things, it really is like this like calling card type thing, in a way, the function of a record can be so many things as well as beautiful art. It can also almost be like this is I man, your craft on the craft is so strong. Like the songs and the lyrics and the melodies and the like the themes and the line you walk of like pretty specific narrative about like Sacramento is a real standout to me.
oh, ooh,
Um,
that's my favorite.
yeah, talk about that song because you're kind of from that general area. What is that song for you? It's a perfect last track, by the way, too.
Thanks. Yeah, I feel so too. And, it's definitely my favorite song on the record. And yeah, I don't know. I think it just becomes it's a song that has so much emotion to it. For me, I've spent my entire adult life away from home. All my family is still in Sacramento. And I mean, Sacramento in general has this very interesting vibe, very much expertly captured in that Lady Bird movie, like where
Was just
everybody
gonna bring up Lady Bird. Yeah,
everybody in Sacramento hates Sacramento, but then if anybody outside of Sacramento hates on Sacramento, they say shut up.
everyone stands up for it. Totally.
Yeah, it is this kind of weirdly beautiful, miserable place. And there is so much beauty there. And I don't, it's an interesting place. I couldn't really, I mean, I could probably write pages about it, but I think that song, I think I did a good job capturing kind of that conflict and beauty with it. And even just, I think when I moved out of Sacramento, I always had in the back of my head, like, oh, I can always give this being making it in the music biz thing, I can give that a go. And if it never happens, I can always move back to Sacramento.
Mm,
And I don't even think I could do that now because the Bay Area has infiltrated Sacramento for good parts too. It's become a lot more fun place and cultured place to be since I was a kid. But it's with that, it's become inflated price wise like the
yeah.
rest of Sacramento. So it just feels, yeah, like this place that always will be my home, but I don't think I'll ever live there.
Mm,
So it's weird. And I have like feelings of moving from Los Angeles up to Portland, Oregon, and like passing Sacramento in a big moving van full of all your crap.
mm.
It was kind of weird to me.
Yeah, what is that the track where you talk about the grapevine and up the five, or is that that's a different track, correct?
Oh yeah, that one's Race to the Bottom,
That's right.
but similar. I think that those were probably written at the
Hmm.
same week or something, same feeling. But yeah, that was literally like a very literal phrase of driving up the grapevine. And
Yeah. Man, just a sort of like postcard. Your record feels like such a beautiful postcard in a way of like a time in a person's life, Like I love an album that can feel, again, one of the mystical parts about any song is when somebody can be hyper specific to themselves but somehow be universal at the same time or whatever.
Mhm.
And your record feels like a really great postcard of like, I feel like I got to know a person um, in running this record down over and over. Um, and
Right.
that's like a feat because I do think that almost what we were talking about, like people can construct records or fantasies, right? Like a record is a fantasy, it's not real. It's like
Oh,
whatever, whether it's 4 track or whether it's Pro Tools or whatever, it's you are constructing a fantasy, but
right.
the thing you constructed feels like a compelling person I want to come back to and learn more about with each listen. And so hats off to you for that. Like I think you really Candace is another standout track. I was just thinking about that. Weirdly, my son got sick this year and they made him a bunch of thank you cards. And just like the picture you painted of sort of like a saintly figure who like if I'm getting it right, like rounded up the kids to write you a bunch of get well cards. I
Yeah.
mean, um, that
Yeah, that's another great like jumping off point
mm,
song of like I was just thinking about, yeah, because that whole like first verse in that tune is literal. There's this gal in school, and yeah, I was a short kid. Not much has changed there. I'm still very short. I'm like 5'7", 5'8" on a good day. That's pretty average, but on the shorter side.
mm,
But there's this, at the time girl, and her name was Candace, and she towered over me and she bullied me probably. And I don't think I ever like, took the bait or whatever. I just kind of was like, whatever. And I did crack the back of my head on the playground, and I was, bleeding everywhere,
mm,
and I was crying. And I think her and my other friend like walked me up to the principal's office where they called my parents and took me to the emergency room. And yeah, I came back to school the next day, and she took it upon herself to get everybody to write me a card and everything. And I think that was the first time I'd realized that, just because people are mean to you or something, they can still like you or something like that. And
mm.
yeah, it turned into this whole other like piece about, you know, the world at large and how everybody's so mean. And like, why you gotta be mean? But that's not the truth. It's like people are so nice, you know.
I have a theory. I was talking to my friend yesterday about this. I think we are living in a time where certainly everybody is high strung, worried, insecure, and like suspicious. I think that's
Hmm.
potentially true, at least in my first world, California centric estimation. Like rich, poor, or everyone in the middle, everybody's kind of freaking out, I think, due to the nature of culture and society and everything in a way. And so it is easy to look around and just be like, I'm surrounded by a bunch of jerks, in a sense. It's
Yeah,
like it's maybe not true, but I liked the sentiment of your song that kind of feels like it's like, yeah, why are there jerks everywhere? But like, yeah, maybe there are some kind-hearted folks, but
yeah,
like pulling the curtain back on that feeling,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I like to that in that second verse of that song, and this is all, talking about stuff that I hope comes out that people will then listen to this podcast and be able to then reach the song. And if not, just shoot me a message, anybody. I'll send you the link if you want to listen to it if you're that eager. But yeah, I love that line that I got to use, like where I used in the song the word jerk, but in real life I call it the asshole rule. And
Hmm.
it's, if you meet an asshole, you met an asshole. But if you meet three assholes, you're the asshole.
There
And
you go.
I think that that's like so true because I experienced that so many times where I'm just going about my day and I'm like, man, is everybody just an idiot? I
It says
hate.
more about where you're
And
at
then
the time.
I'm able to like slow down, or my wife or somebody's able to be like, you're just you're on one today or something, and you're like, oh yeah. But I think that that tying into what you said, where we're all suspicious and anxious, and yeah, I don't know. I forget who said it, but I was reading something the other day that I very much resonated with, and I think that historians will look back at this time, 50 plus years from now, and they're not going to look back very kindly at where we're at as a society, and they're going to be like, you let these tech billionaires
Yeah.
infiltrate our minds and our eyeballs and our ears at no break stops, no nothing,
Regulation. Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
like infiltrate our brains and our what we're ingesting.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna make everybody have, a nervous breakdown, and I don't know. I just don't think that we're gonna look back at this time that we're at with media connection and social connection and
No, it's like
technology very fondly.
it's deep disconnection. You're less than nothing and race to the bottom feel like that for me, where it's kind of feels like you're riffing on some of these things, right? Where it's like, and by the way, like less than nothing, hold on. Yeah. Less than nothing is kind of a standout track,
Yeah.
it stylistically too, right? Like it feels
Yeah.
like
We
um
turned up on that one a bit.
yeah.
It's definitely like the angriest song on the record, which,
Hmm.
has kind of on some of my songs toward on my last record, So True, I started kind of experimenting with this writing style of more like, more doing poetry and putting a lot of words together and then grafting it to a song later.
Mm,
Mostly because I just don't have the time. I have more time where I'm sitting in the car and I'm able to work on lyrics. And I feel like a lot of the other times where I'm sitting down playing guitar, I'm just kind of playing for the joy of
mm.
playing the instrument. So then I feel like I've found a good, what I'm saying is that I've kind of adopted this new style of writing music where I write a lot of like poetry. I guess I'd call it. I don't call myself a poet, but I just write kind of free stance verses of words, and there will be like a rhythmic cadence to it that I'll usually fall into, but then I'll graft that to music later. And that's just what that song was. I was obviously feeling some sort of a way about, probably paying way too much money in rent. in Los Angeles or something like that.
Hmm.
And I just kind of wrote this angry song about it. And yeah, I think that the way to drive the point across is we kind of just turned up the amps a bit and rocked out a little bit harder.
Hmm.
I think it still works with the record, but it definitely is kind of like, whoa, like it's a spine on the back of that record for sure.
It is, yeah. But I dig records with that too, like out a little like outlier-ish, but like I like records that have it doesn't like beautiful records can have like a full pure through line, and other records can have like these moments that stand out as like a different aesthetic move, but it still ties in. Like it caught my ear because it feels a little like indie rock or something like this outside of some of the more maybe traditional
Yeah.
folk approaches and stuff. But it
Yeah.
shows, it also just shows this breadth of your craft, man. It's like such a, you have like a really broad spectrum of skills happening. It's,
Yeah.
I love hearing, I love hearing an artist, I guess, that like inspires me to want to broaden my craft, if that makes sense. Like among,
Yeah.
and also your music makes me want to write songs, which I think is something I love.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I don't know. A lot of my I think a lot of my songs, like my first songs that I wrote when I was in my band in my 20s, it was it was pretty like the songs I feel like were pretty like topical. Like I was more writing about a feeling and it was all the words were kind of pastiche and they could apply to kind of anybody, which maybe some people would think like that's a good song because they can apply to anybody. But I think you touched on this earlier in the conversation. I've become more inspired by people that are able to like weave in like kind of hyper fixated, nuanced realism into their songs. And I think it kind of coincides with my ideology of like a easier way to make precious artists to be less precious. I think that like maybe a way to make more applicable art or make songs that resonate with somebody is to be more specific. Because I think as humans we're already kind of pre-wired to like search for meaning, you know? I think we're always searching for meaning. I am. I'm definitely guilty of, looking at the trees and the weather and being like, oh, that's because of this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
I'm always searching for meaning, and I think that that's just a general human trait. And I think that if we bring some sort of specific nuance into songwriting, I think that like people will find a way to implant their reality into
Oh yeah.
that fantasy. It's the same way that like I can watch Spider-Man or you can watch Spider-Man and like still feel like we're in Spider-Man's shoes,
Yeah.
you know?
That's right.
And I
That's
feel
right.
like that's like, let everybody be Spider-Man for a second.
Yeah, yeah.
Give them a little bit of space, let them cast their own reality into those shoes. And I
That's
feel like we have that power as songwriters. And
there you go. That's a beautiful way to put it. Yeah, casting yourself into someone's art. I mean, there's a good theory to think about too, where you listen to music you love. I was thinking about this the other day. Like, I could listen to music that is sort of like objectively great or something, like JJ Cale, let's say. Like, I know you're a fan and I'm a fan. Like, I can sit there and go, this is objectively great. Like, anybody who thinks this is bad is they've got a problem or something.
yeah.
But I'm still casting my own version of what it is onto it. Does that make sense? Like I'm turning it into a thing, if that makes sense. Like I'm imagining him recording it. I'm imagining that time in history. I'm still almost co-writing the song. Like I like this thought experiment, like
Yeah. And he
with
has
whatever. Yeah.
yeah, for me, like he has this like cool mystique that almost makes you feel like you can be like cool and mysterious and
Yeah.
vibey, like he's got that in spades, he's just super cool. And but that's what's genius about it is when you listen to it, it's not like pretentious. It doesn't close you off. It's kind of like, come here.
Yeah. Welcome.
You're sitting at the cool table
You're at the
now.
cool table, the door is open, the dust is kind of blowing in, but the trick he pulls, which blows my mind, is like it's very produced, and
Yeah.
very like multi-layered and complicated, and his vocals and his doubled vocals and like whatever, like a little quiet hi-hat over here. You know that song Bluebird?
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that. I remember hearing that. I was like, oh, okay, this guy's not just like casual whatever. This is like it's
Yeah.
like surgery almost, but then it's just like whatever. It's like both.
A big spirit animal for my record that's going to be coming out, Plucker, was his song "Wish I Had Not Said That," which is off of his later '80s record called Shades.
Oh, shade. Oh, man.
Yeah, you should check out that record because
Mm,
that's another great thing about JJ Cale is that, like, of course, Call Me the Breeze is excellent. Of course,
yep.
Cocaine is excellent. Of
Yep.
course, all these hits that he have, they're hits for a reason, but you can go down his whole discography and find just cool tracks the whole way. And
Mhm.
Wish I Had Not Said That is definitely one for me. Like it's got this like cool portamento Moog, like mini Moog sound that you
Mm,
can just totally tell like somebody probably brought that over or lent it to him and he's like, it's super primitive. Like the part is not it's two notes, but it has like the perfect glide in between. You're
mhm.
just like, wow. And then there's this beautiful piano in the background that's like not very like it's like muddy.
Yeah, yep. Well, and also, man, I didn't put this together. Look at the people on this record.
Yeah, look at Keltner's on it.
Yeah, it's like an LA record. Russ
Yeah.
Kunkel. Yeah.
I think he moved down to San Diego around that time. Just
Uh-huh.
hanging out in LA, but
He
but the
also lived in a trail. He also lived in like like an Airstream near Disneyland for a while in Orange County somewhere.
yeah.
And like he's
Yeah.
endless
Picture of
inspiration.
him. There's like a picture of him in his trailer with like some recording equipment, stuff like that. And I'm like, spirit animal.
That's the dream. Yeah, give me a trailer, give me my 4 track, and I'll call you in a few years. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I love his like interviews of like he's like and there you go, like tying back into my own experience where there's this great TV interview where they were doing some like night spread on him and uh he to like loosely paraphrase him and try to get his Oklahoma accent. He's like, things were getting so bad I thought I was gonna have to get me a day job. But then people came up to me and said, have you seen Eric Clapton's got your song in a Michelob commercial? He's like, I went to my P.O. box and found a check and I said, oh, I guess I don't have to work for a few more years. I'm just like, what a vibe.
What a hero. Yeah.
Yeah, what a vibe. So hopefully somebody will poach one of my songs for a White
Michelob.
Claw commercial or something,
That's right. That's
the
right.
modern equivalent.
Tell me what you're up to on sort of a regular basis these days. You've like moved your sort of setup in your home studio, and then you also work out of a couple of what's the name of the studio up there that you work out sometimes that's like
Yeah,
multiple
I
studios?
worked. I'm mostly working at this studio called Scenic Burrows,
Yeah.
up in Vancouver. My friend John Askew uh, owns and runs it, but he is mostly doing um, movie scoring, which he's actually started to bring me into a bit more, which is a really exciting world. And I'm mostly helping him on more like back end organization stuff. I've made it very clear that I have aspirations to score and create a bit more. So I got to do a little bit of a Ry Cooder Paris, Texas slide guitar vibe on a few tracks for him for some cues, which was a lot of fun for me. That's a world that I'd like to get into more. But I've kind of handled all the bands that come into that studio, which is great because there's a lot of talent up this way. A lot of really cool people. Just recorded this band called Lost Lander up this way, and I even got to do a few things with that guy M Ward.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so there's a lot of insane talent up here in the Pacific Northwest, and so that's been a great opportunity. And then I just started doing some work at this other recording studio called Dead Ant Thelma's. Um,
Hmm.
really funny name, but it's a really lovely studio, managed by this guy named Gus Berry. And so I've been kind of helping those people out, and they've been nice enough to helped toss me some work, some like in-house work, in between, my freelancing of people kind of coming in and whatnot. And so yeah, I've been mostly doing that in conjunction with my own music and trying to just trying to plan this release for this record. I'm fully independent. I'm always kind of putting a fishing line out to see if anybody would be interested jumping on board. But it's always kind of one of those things where uh, nobody wants to help you when you need the help. But when you just start applying yourself and doing it yourself, then people start showing up. So
Mm.
I'm just trying to book some shows, book maybe a little tour, get this thing released. I'm in the middle of probably making, let me count, one, two, three. I'm like in the middle of making 3 or 4 records for other people,
Mm.
various like tracking or overdubbing or mixing kind of stage.
Is the stuff you do at home generally remote? Like, are people sending you tracks, or is it a mix of people coming to you and remote?
Yeah, I mostly try to take people to the bigger studios. My studio here is, I mean, it's a very, very nice home studio that um, it kind of goes into that thing that we were talking about where it's a home studio. There's some limitations.
Mm.
So if you're down with that, we can do that. But if I kind of sense that people want something a little bit more or more pro or more options, then I try to sway them there. And I just kind of keep this home studio as where I mix and do some overdubs. It's very easy to do overdubs and stuff here, but I'm trying to kind of get it up to speed to do some tracking, like more reliable tracking, but I need to do some soundproofing.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, just kind of doing all those things to keep the dream alive, And it all kind of, like I said, I'm trying to find that balance. It's just been such a up and down for so long of like having so much work and being kind of burnt out, but being happy that there's money. And then, but getting burnt out and then being happy that there's no work and then there's no money and then being afraid and then like calling everybody and emailing people and being like, did you want to make that record now? And then all that effort like picks up the swell
Crystallizes.
again and creates this big wave of busy work, which I'm kind of in the middle of right now.
Mm.
Um, but I'm trying to do better of just kind of leveling it out and keeping a consistent kind of flow and managing my time better and managing people better. Um,
Do you try? I mean, I know it's a moving target constantly and a constant uh, battle to figure it out, but do you try to keep work hours? Like, do you try to clock out?
I do. I mean, I basically try to work. I basically try to work a 9 to 5
Hmm.
or 10 to 7
Hmm.
or or 8. It usually goes about there. But I usually don't try to work later than 8, and I try to start around 9. Um, Obviously that varies sometimes working, like I said, with people. Like I've done sessions that start at 3 or 4 p.m. because that's when somebody could get off work. And but I try to keep business hours. I think I always it's hard, people that hire me, and I get it. They wanna get the most economy out of their buck for like a day's work. And kind of what I always say to them is they're like, well, how much is a day for like your services and how long is that? And I go, well, here's the thing. We'll call it an 8 hour day because that's what people tend to work. The thing is, most cases, out of those 8 hours, usually only about 6 of them,
Hmm.
people are like actually working and getting stuff done.
Hmm.
So like I don't want to be there if we're not getting anything done. But on the other side of that, I will never stop a session if it's happening, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like if everything is snapping into place and the band is sounding on fire and we are getting gold,
Yeah.
I won't look at my clock and be like, we're going into like
Yeah.
because that's not why I do it. But the truth of that is that that's happened in my recording career two, three
Yeah.
times.
It's not very common. Yeah.
No, and like it's been that way though, where like when it's happening, it's like everybody knows, like kind of like
Mm.
this is incredible. Like we
Mm-hmm.
are getting incredible stuff. I will never stop that recording session.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go into the next morning if that's how good it is and it's still being that good.
But that's a rarity. Yeah.
It's a rarity, and that's then the reality is usually 6 hours is about good. When we get to hour eight, that's when everybody's usually cooked,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think you do more damage
Yeah.
than going past that. When you have the singer or the drummer or whomever
People are
that's
fried.
I just need one more take.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna try it this way. I'm gonna
Yeah.
try it this way. That's then you create this like mud, and
Mm.
then you come in the next day and you just go like, oh God, I hate all of this.
Mm.
Whereas if you just like walk away and like get some space and come back the next day, it's likely that you'll just go, that's what I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a fascinating thing to think like I mean there's a reason it's so funny. I don't know my history on this too much, but like you think about these records like Buck Owens for example, recording at Capitol in the 50s. Like if you look at the track, I've seen the track sheets for some of that. It's like 10 to 1 lunch, 2 to 5 maybe, and like 3ish, 4ish songs and like they were onto something. You know what I mean? Like it's like let's play our tune, let's play it a few times. Sounds good. Let's do the next one. And I know that's a specific style of music, but like it sort
Yeah.
of speaks to like working like yes, we're fresh, we can do this, and now we need to eat a little bit, and now we're going to do it a little bit more, and then we're all going to go home. Um,
Yeah.
only in like prog rock did the budgets explode, and then cocaine I'm sure helped a lot of people or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like those working hours are pretty good for a reason, right?
I'd say, yeah. I mean, I'd say it's yeah, and that just goes back to our point about creating limitations.
Mm,
If you have limitless limitations, then like art, I don't know what the saying is. Everybody always says it like art without limitations is something. I'll just say art without limitations sucks.
hmm
You just you you can hear it when somebody's like pandering and like chasing their tail in something. But when you have that limitation of like, all right, I put money on the table. I got studio time booked. I got these players booked. We got to come out with something. I don't have the time to sit here and, tap my finger and go, Like it needs to be like, sounds good, is good. Let's move. Let's
Well,
go.
that's why I will say that's why your craft is inspiring to me because you are a very capable musician who could probably like artificially drum up a solo record that involves nobody except you. But you're wise enough to know that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like you're wise enough to know that you need to create stakes for yourself, get human beings in the room to accomplish the thing you want to accomplish because what you're looking for is like something other than the artificial four
Yeah.
month record where it's you alone
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did, and I drove myself crazy.
Yeah, there
Then
you
you
go.
just hire a drummer for a couple $100 for the day.
And they do it better than you could have in 4 months or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, I could grid myself and time everything right and replace all my sloppy bad hits.
Yeah, yeah.
Or I can call Sheridan Riley or Ben Lumsdaine.
Yeah, and they just do it and you're like, I'm happy with that.
And not only do they do it better, which then
I know.
inspires me a whole other way.
Yep.
Because that creates the risk creates surprise. And that's what I love about like Beatles recordings, when you
Yep.
hear them, like, especially in that like middle era of their career, like when they all like loved each other and they're still like pushing, and they always loved each other, but you know what I'm saying. When they were still very like unified, like Rubber Soul,
Oh, yeah.
Revolver era, and
Yeah.
those songs were so like you hear it and you hear them like figuring out the song as it's happening, and there's this like
Yep.
excitement and this downhill rolling momentum energy, And that's what you get by like everybody kind of working together. And when I can't listen to like that Kevin Parker, Tame Impala guy, you know.
Oh, that's a good example. That's actually a good example of the opposite energy. I'm with you
So
on that.
everything is so monotoned energy. Everything is just like there's no surprise. Everything was moving just as it should. And maybe that does, I mean, it obviously does it for a lot of people. And
Cells, yeah.
yeah, and there's a lot of like impressive stuff about that music, but I hear it and it doesn't excite me the same way that, listening to Bob Dylan, More Blood, More Tracks.
I've heard stories of, and I won't even name the artists or the engineers, but a couple of engineers who work in LA have done sessions with bigger artists with endless budgets who have come into their studio and literally done like the 50th drum take, which is the 50th of that version of the third version of that one song on this record that's going to come out in 2.5 years. And that's like the Tame Impala vibe I get, right? Where it's like, I have so many resources that like, yeah, I like that drum. Like, it seemed like that guy's thing was like 90s house music or whatever his latest shtick is. So he goes and buys all the drum machines, right? And like presses play on all of them. He's like, cool. Okay, now we'll spend 2 years like recording the kick drum and like like it's like this. It's like, you know what excitement is? Well, let me tell you what excitement is. I'm going to take 2 years and distill excitement so that it's not exciting anymore, you know?
Yeah, I can't get on with that anymore.
Yeah.
I I just but I realize that, I guess you can throw me in the pool of um being a purist or perhaps a Luddite.
Mm,
I I that's just what I like. And when I have all these people coming up to me and saying, "Oh my God, are you like afraid that AI is going to take your job? And how do you feel about it and everything?" And honestly, I feel quite the opposite. I've been like looking around in this Spotify era of like what's going to save us, like how, the federal government saved us musicians in the Napster era and like restored value to musicians. I'm like, well, what's gonna save us now in this new streaming era of music? And I think it's gonna be ourselves. And I think,
mm,
I'm a kid from Sacramento with a decent singing voice at best and a snarly guitar approach, but I've learned to enjoy the realness of it and I lean into it. And I think that's going to be my bag. And I think for anybody that can lean into
mm,
the things that probably make them uncomfortable.
mm.
I guess what I'm saying is that I realized that the things that for so long I was trying to X out of my
Yeah.
musical
Yeah.
prowess, that was
Yeah.
what other people liked about me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's your thing. And then once I kind of became friends with that,
There you go.
I started making better, or I just started producing more and better. And I think that that's going to be what saves us because we're in the era of big and endless great, of this AI and everybody being able to pump out exceptional content, songs, essays, words, research with the stuff that we're like losing touch. It's just losing touch with humanity. So I think that the more like human you can be, which is honestly being like the most authentic and imperfect you can be, then I think that that's going to be your place in the marketplace.
Mm.
That's it. So I
That's a
don't
really,
I
yeah.
don't know this. I don't know, but this is my hypothesis, and I guess that's the road I'm going to go down. Where people are going to hear the music and hear the room and hear the humans that did it and be like, wow, I feel something. This is crazy. Like it
Mm.
wasn't computer generated. So, um,
That's insightful, Sam. I think we'll leave it there. Like you're articulating basically like the value of the reason we would make art now, like, and that would be to like express ourselves as human beings and be fully human and like lean into those things that make us human, and that like the theory that that will over time resonate with other human beings feels like a damn good theory to me.
I think so. I think that that's the only way it can go, you know? I think just like me, when I got my first four track at the prime age of, 26, I was like, where was this all my life?
Mm.
And, you know, I hope that I'll meet some other people that go, man, I thought that how you wrote a song was and you got a prompt from AI and you got a whatever, and it'll be a saving a graceland for somebody, hopefully, just to have this old relic approach. But that's my bag and that's what I'm about. And so I'll keep doing it and hopefully my weakness will become my strength.
Well, I love your music and I love your productions, and also just I can also just feel your enthusiasm for music. I always felt when I was younger, I would hang with people and we would play music, and then I would feel that they had less enthusiasm than me at some point. Not always, but a lot of the time. I'd be in a band and then I'd be like, oh, the bass player doesn't want to play as much as I do, blah, blah, blah. And
Mhm.
so I like meeting people that are like lifers. Like, and I feel it from you that you're obsessed with music and you're going to do it for your whole life. And that's infectious.
Oh,
Like I
good.
said, your stuff makes me want to make things, and that's the best compliment I can give. I feel like energized by your thing. So
Thanks. Yeah.
thank you for
Well,
it.
I feel the same way about you, Josh. And yeah,
Oh,
I love
thanks.
to speak with other, yeah, people about the craft. And I always appreciate seeing everything that you're up to and producing, and you're producing at a quite a prolific level too. I think it's really inspiring and thank you. I saying that I feel the same. It's mutual.
Good deal.